So today's topic is Helicobacter pylori. Helical, they are, you can see they are curved. Bacter, they are bacteria. Pylori, it is the stomach pylorus part, which is generally the lower part of the stomach, just prior to the starting of the duodenum, where commonly the ulcers and problems take place. So we'll go back to the little bit about the history part of it. As as early as 1890, almost 130 years, it was found that it was thought that they are spirochete, they're those spiral kind of organisms in animals. That's all they know in the stomach of these animals to start with. Then after 10 years, they found the same kind of thing in the stomach of human being. Then in 54, they found that, I don't know how it happened, that they did gastric biopsies of good over 1,000 patients and they didn't find any bacteria. And little later, in 75, they found gram-negative bacilli in 80% of genitourinary cases. Generally, they were pseudomonas, but they were always mistaken. Then 1983, it was first characterized by two big scientists who did a very good job, and they in fact got the Nobel Prize. And they were Warren and Marshall. I'll show you their photographs. They characterized, means they identified and placed it properly as to what they are. And then almost 25 years or 22 years later of having characterized, these people got the Nobel Prize. You can understand how much time these people who decide about giving Nobel Prize take to recognize. Okay, then little more about the background. Earlier they found the concept about stomach, you all know, is anatomy part must have been told to you. It is producing very high acidic pH because of the secretion of the hydrochloric acid, where if you slit open the stomach and put your finger, it will get burnt. So they thought that there is nothing could stay in the human stomach, in the human, and they no organism could survive. But then later they found that in the mucosal layer, mind you, the uppermost layer, even above the epithelial lining of the stomach mucosa, submucosa, musculus mucosa, and so on, the spiral-shaped organisms were there. Few of them were seen, but then there was no disease established, no inflammatory or something. And they first classified. Earlier they thought it is Campylobacter pylori. They gave it a name, and which is now known as. Now we have a Campylobacter jejuni, a separate entity, which this organism was earlier mistaken for. Now what is clearly known as is Helicobacter pylori. There are other species of which they are of the same organism present in the intestine, stomach, and of human as well as other animals. Now Marshall and Warren, they cultured this from the mucosa of the human being and showed association with inflammation of the stomach, the gastric inflammation. Now Warren and Marshall, they first found that they are Campylo-like because they were earlier taken as Campylo, but they are actually helico. They look like them, spiral shape, and were colonizing in the gastric mucosa. To be more precise, to start with in the mucosal area, not even over the cells. And then later on they invaded, and for certain changes which have occurred, they gave rise to inflammation. So now it has been established as an etiological agent for gastritis, inflammation of the stomach, and even ulcers which are produced besides inflammation as peptic ulcer, and it is Helicobacter pylori. It is found to be colonizing in 50% of all of us. Only thing is they are not doing any problem. So we should not be disturbing them. Just finding it and giving treatment will only complicate the issue. So they can be left. And if you give treatment, then they become so much resistant. Last few slides, I'll show you. They are those great people. Warren is the one on the right side, elderly man, on my right and your right, and left is Marshall, a relatively younger person. I looked it into the net and found it. They are receiving the Nobel Prize, which is a big honor, the biggest honor in the field of science and different activities. They were awarded, but imagine after almost 3 years of their discovery. The characters of Helicobacter, the general characters of Helicobacter, they are actually now considered as major human pathogen, and they are clearly associated with gastric antral epithelium in patient with active chronic gastritis. Antral part is what I just said. The lower part, just before the duodenum starts, is that area which is more vulnerable and where the inflammation takes place. Even it is found in colonized in animals also, Now, what is more important is certain enzymes are produced by this bacteria, like urease, which is the most important. Only those strains which are found in the stomach, mucinase, catalase, they are all produced by it, and they are highly motile by virtue of their tuft of flagella on one pole. We call it as lohotrichus. They are neither peritrichus, not single or at both poles, and they are biochemically they are having catalase positivity. They produce mucinase, whereby the mucin is not able to. They are comfortable in the mucin layer, and they develop and get into the epithelial lining. Others which are there are Synandy and Phenelli. They are other helicobacters which are there, and they are known to colonize the intestinal tract. But the one we are talking about is stomach. It has been also isolated from homosexual man, those into this abnormal sexual activity, male to male. They get the proctitis. Proctitis, you understand? That the stomatodeum, the mouth, the lower end. Then proctocolitis, even going up inflammation. Enteritis can take place. And if it is spreading in the blood, bacteremia, which is a very difficult thing, and transmitted through unnatural sexual practices. Now, this is a beautiful slide which is highly magnified. They are all the epithelial lining of the gastric mucosa, the epithelial lining of the stomach mucosa. And was interestingly, it was taken from the biopsy of Dr. Marshall, the younger one, who got Nobel Prize. He drank the culture of H. pylori way back in 1985. And then he got the problem, and then he got biopsies taken, and that is where this was stained with a silver stain, and what you see black spiral things are the Helicobacter pylori. They are over the mucosal layer in the mucosa, in the mucus. They are gram-negative, spiral-shaped, motile, unipolar, tuft. You can see they are generally 4 to 8 flagella. The interesting part is that these flagella have a sheath, which again adds to their virulence, and they are tuft of them, and they are spiral, as you see. That's why they were earlier confused with Campyllo. They are gram-negative, this thing, that thing, this thing has flagella over one pole. Microaerophilic. They need less amount of oxygen, and the most important property is they are urease positive, which is being taken, which is being used in diagnosis without invasive technique. And this is the most important character of these organisms. So this is, of course, the scanning microscopic view. What you see, highly magnified. Mind you, scanning is even higher than the plain electron microscopy. So you can see the this thing and beautifully there. And so they are spiral. The size is about 2 to 4 micron length and 0.5 micron or 0.5 micron width. They are blunt or rounded ends in the biopsy specimen, but when you culture them, they tend to become focal, like foci on repeated cultures. Produce urease, mucinase, catalase, which are characteristic. This Lohotrichus sheath, the flagella that they have is generally 4 to 6 or 8, and they are attached to one pole. And interestingly, these two species, H. phenelli and Synandy, they have got only single flagella over the pole, and otherwise there's a tuft. Smooth cell wall with unusual fatty acids are there. This is how one gets infection: genitooral, fecal-oral, even from the fruits you see on the right corner, from the animal, their products. So what is more important is that whatever you consume should be thoroughly cleaned, washed, and should be washed before consuming food, after being to toilet, so that the chain is broken and you don't get the transmission. The chain is broken and you don't get the infection. Even kissing, in the saliva they are in plenty. Humans, they infect, inflammatory response there, and that is where with this kind of communication or getting infection transmission, very important is hand washing. Hand washing is, as you all know, corona also, hand washing is very important. Often, because you touch left, right, maybe the viruses are there. You touch your nose, which is not advocated. You should wash your hand, cover your face. Sneezing, coughing will not allow the aerosols to go out from the infected cases. Neither you get infection nor you get infection. Now, beautiful slide shows how what all are the arms and things which make it pathogenic. So what you see in the middle, the spiral thing is the bacteria. Okay, this one. Now various components. Let's start with the left. Flagella, left. They are having a motility, which is giving them virulence. Chemotaxis allows them to colonize under mucosa. Okay. Then urease enzyme, which is very important, is produced by the this organism, which neutralizes the acidity of the stomach, and with the result, once the acidity is lowered, the mucosal cells get injured by splitting of the urea by the urease enzyme into ammonia, and ammonia causes the mucosal injury. Then you come on the right, lipopolysaccharides are there. They are over the cell wall. They help in the adherence of these cells to the host cell, that means the epithelial lining of the stomach, and cause inflammation. There are outer proteins. They again help in the adhering of this to the host cell. Then we go left, below flagella. Exotoxins are produced, which are cytotoxins, which are vacuolating toxin, VACA, causes again the injury to the mucosa of the stomach. Secretory enzymes are there like mucinase, protease, lipase. They overcome the barrier of the mucin, the fat, and facilitate the entry of this organism into the mucosal cells, causing mucosal injury. Now, there is a system wherein they have a device where you can see a yellow thing as a needle, just as we have needle of the syringe, which is actually the mechanism system which gets attached and pierces the host cell and allows the pathogenic components of the bacteria to enter in. And the effectors are cytotoxin, this thing, this thing associated and gene A, which are carrying out the remodeling of the actin, the interleukin induction IL-8, which gives rise to these various cytokines, host cell growth, and inhibition of the apoptosis. So they are all the arms or the things which facilitate their spread. How do you culture? There are little fastidious, doesn't grow on ordinary media. You need chocolate agar, blood agar, it will grow. Campylobacter media is there, and one of the ones, if you remember, is Skirrhos, SKIRRAW, Skirrhos media. Now, what is important is they have to be incubated under microaerophilic condition. 5% oxygen, 15 to 20% carbon dioxide, and 80% of the nitrogen combination in the jar in which you put the plate, they will grow well. Oxidase, they are positive. Catalase, they are positive. Urease is the most important thing, which they are strongly urease positive. They are translucent, very minimal of hemolysis on blood agar, and they are urease positive. That is very important. Now, having ingested these organisms by through mouth, of course, they evade the immune system. They manage to evade the immune system, like the phagocytic cells, dendritic cells of the stomach and all, and enter the mucus. Mind you, the mucus, which is acellular, overlying or the innermost over the epithelial cell, by virtue of their motility and urea production and all, and then they bind to the epithelial cell. They insert into by that device you have seen, and that is where the inflammation takes place. And this is a highly magnified slide wherein they have shown the epithelial folds which have got those kind of vacuolated cells between the normal epithelial cells, which are more easy to get through and get over the epithelial cells which are just underneath the mucus or mucosal area. And so are there these crypts you see on the right side. The arrow is showing on the right, mind you, these bacteria are lying over the epithelial cell in the mucin. There is an inflammatory response. H. pylori is shown in the stomach content. Mucosal layer is shown where they get harbored, attached by way of adhesion or this thing adhering to the epithelial cells. Inflammatory mediators, these are those macrophages, histiocytes. They all release cytokines. Then there are two methods whereby the immune response, inflammatory, whereby the activation of T cells and B cells take place, and they facilitate their entry into the epithelial cells and cause damage, inflammation, and even apoptosis of the cells. So they colonize the gastric mucosa, spread by oral contact, oral to oral, means kissing and this by through saliva, fecal-oral. Though where there is a poverty, all these things are there. The hygiene is not there and poor hygiene. And generally, it is causing mild to acute gastritis. And the gastric antrum, which I have just said, the part which is the last part of the stomach, the lower one, causes gastric metaplasia. Metaplasia, by now you must be familiar. Pathology people must have told you transfer of one type of ileum to the other by way of various irritants, which is a precancerous condition. Thereafter, adenocarcinoma can take place and becomes a serious issue. Any part of stomach can be involved, but what is there is the gastric, the antral part. And what they initially colonize over the mucosal layer, but the lining, but don't really invade the mucosa proper. But later on, the ulcers take place. So these are the areas. Esophagus, duodenal ulcers are there in the first part of duodenum. Marginal ulcers are there in the third part or last part of duodenum. Peptic in the antral part. That's the antral part. Last lower part of the stomach. So this is what this has been already told to you. So they actually are predisposing condition or inflammation because of H. pylori, leading to lymphomas of the lymphoid tissue of the omentum of the submucosal aggregation. That is one. And the adenocarcinoma of the mucosal lining, the epithelial cells. So either they are ulcerated or they are precursor. This infection is there, followed by lymphoma and the adenocarcinoma. So this is again the slide. The curvature that you see is the mucosal layer, which is acellular. They are trying to invade, and they are even traversing and going into the epithelial lining, where they cause inflammation of the epithelial cells of the gastric mucosa. So they have got sheath flagella, which is very characteristic, and the movement is by corkscrew, like this, and that enables them to penetrate the thick mucin in the stomach environment. Adhesins facilitate, they're all the virulence factors. Agglutinin, sialic acid binding adhesin. Lewis blood group adhesins are not preventing their getting attached. Mucinase, it degrades or breaks the mucin layer and allows them to go through and cause inflammation or tissue damage. Urea converts, urease enzyme which these bacteria produce, they convert urea, break it into, which urea is plenty in saliva and gastric juices. It breaks into bicarbonate and to CO2 and ammonia. So these things, as by the breakdown products, they neutralize the local acid environment, which is normally very high acidic, and facilitating their spread and cause tissue damage. And there are acid inhibitory proteins also which facilitate their spread. Urea is just a slide showing urea, which is there in the saliva, and it is broken down because of the urease enzyme produced by this bacteria into bicarbonate and the bicarbonate and CO2. So these are isotope labeled. Carbon is being given with urea, which gets into the stomach, and I mean to do the test. And what is ultimately done is these labeled isotope are being measured through the breath, which is there containing CO2 labeled because the split of urea into ammonia and CO2, which is being measured. So we are doing it in our cardiology lab. If you go, you just go and get familiar with the basics of this, and you'll never forget. There's a very simple test, non-invasive. All that one is required to do is to swallow a certain quantity of urea with water, and then after 1 hour, the breath is being taken as in a container, and then it is being analyzed, and the CO2 concentration tells you about the presence of infection and its extent. So their tissue damages are done by the vacuolating toxin, cell damage, invasion. So there are other things which cause damage: hemolysin, phospholipase, alcohol dehydrogenase. They are isko badhana hai wapas. And the protection they get is even the phagocytosis doesn't take place. Intercellular killing doesn't take place because superoxide, dismutase, and catalase. So they are actually there arms whereby they are not being killed. Indications for, now I'll try to make it fast. There are very simple non-invasive tests for the detection of Helicobacter pylori, they are strongly recommended where cases of dyspepsia, there's a thing you get belching and hyperacidity feeling and all, uh, gastroesophageal regurgitation disease or syndrome. And those who have active peptic ulcer disease need to be subjected to this non-invasive gastric mucosa associated lymphoid tissue lymphomas need to be seen because the cause it would be is the this bacteria. Those who have undergone gastric cancer resection as a follow-up, we need to do it. Peptic ulcer surgery, we need to do thereafter. Those which are early stages of cancer, they need to be seen because we are trying to assess this with these organisms, and then we need to treat this so that it doesn't give more problem. Those who are on long-term steroids with anti-inflammatory drugs like non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, abbreviated as NSAID therapy, need to be इसको बढ़ाना है यार इसको नहीं मेरे को नहीं आता देखो मैं तो ये फटाफट ये खत्म कर रहा हूँ. Now the types of tests we are doing beautifully shown in this slide. Endoscopy, visualizing the interior or the inside of the stomach by endoscope, which is being an instrument which is made to visualize. Rapid urine test is done while doing endoscopy. Histology culture tissue is taken and subjected to histopathology exam, and serological test for presence of antibodies. Stool antigen test is there, wherein in the stool of those who are harboring this is found. Then 13C urea blood test, wherein you see the concentration of this having given. Then breath test, wherein the isotope carbon urea is given made to swallow 14 and 13 type, and they are being detected in the breath. So breath test is shown here in a simple way. It detects active infection, sensitive, specific, non-radioactive. They are non-radioactive. Okay, they are isotope but non-radioactive. No special handling required. Easy to collect, handle the sample. Not indicated in, of course, the children because they might have a more problem. So what is done is you see the urea is made to be swallowed. Now, normally if the H. pylori are not there, it is unchanged and passes in the urine. If they are there, it breaks into ammonia and bicarbonate. This goes in the bloodstream. It goes to the lungs, in the breath. So we have the carbon dioxide, CO2, which is with the isotope 14 or 13 is collected in a mylar balloon. It is actually a kind of a device wherein that breath, the quantum of is there, and then it is transferred to a kind of machine which will find out how much is the quantity, to which 10 ml of scintillation fluid is added. Ultimately, we do the count and we know if it is there and to what extent. Diagnosis, invasive and non-invasive test. Invasive is, of course, endoscopic biopsy. We are taking a piece of tissue, gastric mucosa. Microscopy of the biopsy is done, histopathology. Culture is done, staining by special stains are done. Gram staining is enough to even visualize them. And culture is more sensitive method, but it takes a little long time, 3 to 7 days for them to grow. And biopsy testing for urease test in the urease medium. So that piece of biopsy is taken and put in a urease medium. The kits are available now. Immediately the gastroenterologist takes a bunch of biopsy, puts that material, and there is a color change which shows that urease is produced, which splits the urea. So that makes it simple. Identification, we are going ahead. Endoscopy, I said, different transport media are there. Culture media should contain whole blood. They are microaerophilic, which I said 5% of oxygen, 15% of CO2, and 80% of the nitrogen. They grow at 37, but not at a little lower and higher, 25 or 42 more. And do not use carbohydrates, just as Camphylose don't do, and neither they ferment and nor they are oxidative. This is a diagnostic kit. Serology, we are doing by ELISA test. You all know ELISA, enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, wherein one of the two, either the antigen or antibody is already coated in the well, and you look, if the antigen are there in the well, you look for the antibody in the patient serum and vice versa. Blood test, you all know, is we made the patient to swallow the urea solution. This urea solution labeled with isotope carbon. If it is present, it is converted to ammonia and carbon dioxide, and that is being measured in the breath. Very simple. You must go to cardiology, and there is a room where they are doing it. And you get familiar, and it's good to know. Treatment part, we take a history, and this is how we can proceed. And physical examination, peptic ulcer disease could be undifferentiated dyspepsia, we need to look for it. Symptoms of gastroesophageal regurgitation disease, that is a GERD abbreviation. Those who are using non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs or aspirin need to be, for a long time, they need to be looked for presence of pylori. So if the test is positive for H. pylori, we need to give therapy and confirm and give the cure, and then again see if it is there or not. It is being treated effectively. There is nothing which, it is treatable. Positive eradication, confirmation ho gaya. Then in those who are negative, then we need to take it as peptic ulcer disease, PUD. These abbreviations always confuse you. My advice to you is, please do understand the abbreviation, but when you write, make a habit of writing abbreviation plus full form. Initiate the therapy and discontinue non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Treatment is antibiotics, bismuth salts, injection of bismuth subsalicylate. Antibiotics which are effective are tetracycline and metronidazole, which you all know is available as Flagyl or Metrogyl. Use of omeprazole, they are those the proton pump inhibitors. They are drugs which will not allow, which will inhibit the production of the acid by the stomach cells, the delta cells in particular. Clarithromycin is effective. Please do not treat asymptomatic colonization if you even happen to find their positivity by certain tests. If they are not having a symptom, better not to treat, because then they will end up with a severe drug, resistance, which is very difficult to treat. So this is a problem. In Japan, resistance to antibiotic drug has increased to 400 times. Taiwan 500 times. This means that those who are infected, while in this country they find the bacterium rather resistant, they prefer let them be there instead of giving antibiotic treatment. Because if you give it, then you are inviting the resistance. Epidemiology, US is 30% of total population have got it. Of these, about around 1% has developed duodenal ulcer. 1 out of 3 have peptic ulcer disease, PUD. 70% ulcers are colonized with H. pylori, gastric ulcers. And low socioeconomic status predicts H. pylori infection. In developing countries like ours, this is hyperendemic. 10% acquisition rate per year for children between 2 to 8. Most adults are infected or may not have disease. Protective immunity is there, so-called herd immunity, but then we have a problem more than others. Transmission with this is all not required. And that's all. And thank you so much for the patient listening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I'm sorry I had to overshoot because I was getting angry over the IT department. These people didn't come. But then I think I shouldn't lose my cool. That doesn't help. Same advice to you. If you are in a strange situation, maintain your cool. Don't get angry. And I wish you stay healthy, happy. Don't get infection, which you need not to pass. If you don't get, you are not going to pass to anybody. All should stay healthy and join us as early as possible. Even I am looking forward to this lockdown to finish, and maybe we have to do our exams and all. Thank you, and have a good day. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.